Welcome to my channel, a vlog that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The fluorescent lights of the subway car flickered overhead, casting sickly shadows across the faces of late-night commuters who looked as exhausted as I felt. My fingers clutched the worn leather strap hanging from the ceiling, knuckles white with tension as the train lurched through another tunnel. I'd made a mistake. A stupid, careless mistake that was going to cost me everything. I should have been home an hour ago. Should have taken the uptown train like I did every single night. But tonight, my mind had been elsewhere, replaying the moment Derek's fingers had brushed mine when he'd handed me a file this afternoon. The electricity that had shot through my body at that simple, innocent touch. And I'd gotten on the downtown train instead. By the time I'd realized my error, I was already 5 stops in the wrong direction. My phone buzzed in my purse for what felt like the 100th time. I didn't need to look at it to know who was calling. Derek Drake. My boss, the man who terrified half of Manhattan with a single glance. The man whose penthouse office I'd left at precisely 6:47 p.m., mumbling something about needing to pick up groceries before heading home. The man who, for reasons I couldn't begin to comprehend, had started asking where I was going after work, what time I'd be home, whether I'd eaten dinner. My mother's voice echoed in my head, as it always did when I felt the faintest flutter of hope or happiness. Don't be ridiculous, Jasmine. Men like that don't notice girls like you. You're plain, forgettable. The sooner you accept that, the less you'll embarrass yourself. I caught my reflection in the subway window. Mousy brown hair pulled back in a severe bun, glasses that were 2 years out of style because I couldn't afford new ones, a shapeless gray cardigan over a white blouse that had seen better days. My mother was right. I was nothing special. Derek's attention was probably just professional concern for an employee. Nothing more. The train finally screeched to a stop at my station. Union Square, 40 minutes and a lifetime away from where I should have been. I emerged onto the street at 9:23 p.m., my heart hammering as I checked my phone. 12 missed calls, 7 text messages. Where are you? Jasmine, answer your phone. This isn't funny. Call me immediately. I'm sending Marcus to your apartment. If something's happened to you, I swear to God. My hands trembled as I read the messages. There was an edge to them, something I'd never heard from Derek before. Not anger exactly, but something darker, more possessive. It made my stomach twist with an emotion I couldn't name. I lived in a rent-controlled walk-up in Alphabet City, the kind of building where the heating was unreliable and the neighbors' arguments bled through paper-thin walls. It was a 20-minute walk from the subway, through streets that got progressively emptier and darker with each block. I usually tried to be home before sunset. Tonight, I was walking through shadows. My footsteps echoed on the pavement as I hurried past shuttered bodegas and graffitied storefronts. A group of men lounging outside a corner bar called out something that made my cheeks burn, but I kept my head down, walking faster. Almost there. Just 3 more blocks. That's when I saw the car, a black Escalade with tinted windows, idling at the curb directly in front of my building. My steps faltered. I recognized that car. I'd seen it parked outside Drake Industries headquarters every morning when I arrived for work, seen Derek's driver Marcus open the rear door with practiced precision. What was Derek's car doing here? As if in answer, the rear door swung open, and Derek himself emerged onto the sidewalk. Even in the dim streetlight, he was devastating. 6 feet 3 inches of lean muscle wrapped in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as though he'd been running his hands through it, and his jaw was tight with barely controlled emotion. His eyes found mine across the distance, and the intensity of his gaze stopped me dead in my tracks. I'd seen Derek angry before. Watched him reduce grown men to stammering apologies with nothing more than a cold stare. But this was different. This was fury mixed with something that looked almost like fear. And it was directed entirely at me. "Where?" he said, his voice carrying across the empty street with deadly quiet. Have you been? I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my purse clutched to my chest like a shield. I took the wrong train. I'm sorry, Mr. Drake. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to ignore 12 phone calls? He moved toward me, each step measured and predatory. You didn't mean to disappear for 2.5 hours without a word? I didn't think. No, you didn't think. He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made my knees weak. You didn't think that maybe, just maybe, someone might be concerned when you vanished into thin air. Concerned? The word came out as barely a whisper. Why would you be concerned about me? Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or disbelief. Why would I? He stopped, jaw clenching. Do you have any idea what goes through my mind when one of my people doesn't answer their phone? The things that could happen to someone in this city, especially at night. Especially... He cut himself off, but not before I heard it. Especially to you. I'm sorry, I said again, hating how small my voice sounded. I should have called. I didn't think you'd notice. Didn't think I'd notice. He repeated the words like they physically pained him. Jesus Christ, Jasmine. It was the first time he'd ever used my first name. In the 6 months I'd worked as his secretary, it had always been Miss Cole delivered in that crisp, professional tone that made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Hearing my name in his voice, rough with emotion, stripped of that careful control, did something dangerous to my equilibrium. You're shaking, he observed, his gaze dropping to where my hands trembled against my purse. Are you cold? Before I could answer, he was shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it around my shoulders. The silk lining was still warm from his body, and it smelled like him. That intoxicating mixture of expensive cologne and something uniquely Derek that made my head spin. Mr. Drake, I can't... Yes, you can. His hands lingered on my shoulders for a moment longer than necessary, his thumbs brushing against my collarbones through the thin fabric of my blouse. And when we're alone, you can call me Derek. My breath caught. That wouldn't be appropriate. Fuck appropriate. The profanity sounded strange coming from him. Rough and unpolished in a way that sent heat pooling low in my belly. Do you know what the last 2 hours have been like? Calling your phone over and over, getting voicemail, sending Marcus to your apartment, having him report that you weren't home, that your neighbors hadn't seen you, imagining every possible scenario. I'm fine, I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. Really, I just made a mistake with the subway. It won't happen again. It won't, he agreed, because from now on Marcus will drive you home every night. I stared at him. That's not necessary. I can take the subway. Clearly you can't, since you ended up on the wrong side of Manhattan. His eyes held mine, brooking no argument. Marcus will drive you. Every night. No exceptions. Mr. Drake. Derek. Derek. I tried the name on my tongue, feeling simultaneously thrilled and terrified by the intimacy of it. I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept. It wouldn't be right. Why not? Because... I struggled to articulate what my mother's voice was screaming in my head. He's just being polite. He doesn't actually care. You're making this into something it's not. Because you're my boss, and this goes beyond professional concern. I don't want to be a burden. His expression darkened. A burden. I know how busy you are, how important your time is. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm telling you. He stepped closer, eliminating what little space remained between us. Do you know what I saw tonight, Jasmine? When you didn't answer your phone, when I couldn't find you, I saw every terrible thing that could happen to someone like you in a city like this. Someone like me? I echoed. Beautiful, he said simply, and the word hit me like a physical blow. Kind. Completely unaware of how men look at you when you walk by. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what he was saying. Beautiful? Me? I'm not. I started, but he cut me off. Yes, you are. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing along my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. And the thought of something happening to you, of someone hurting you because I wasn't there to prevent it. His jaw clenched. I can't. I won't let that happen. This wasn't professional concern. This was something else entirely. Something possessive and protective and utterly terrifying in its intensity. Why do you care? I whispered. I'm just your secretary. Just my... He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that really what you think? That you're just my secretary? What else would I be? He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching mine as though trying to read secrets written beneath my skin. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and rough with emotion I couldn't name. Come upstairs with me. My heart stopped. What? Your apartment. Let me walk you up. Make sure you get inside safely. It was a reasonable request, gentlemanly even. But the way he said it, like he needed to see me safe behind a locked door before he could breathe again, made it feel like something more. Okay, I heard myself say. We climbed the 5 flights of stairs in silence. The elevator had been broken for 2 weeks, but I'd been too embarrassed to mention it to the super. Derek followed close behind me, his presence at my back both comforting and unnerving. I was hyper-aware of every step, every breath, the way his jacket swamped my smaller frame. My apartment was on the 5th floor, at the end of a dimly lit hallway that smelled of old cooking oil, and something I preferred not to identify. I fumbled with my keys, my hands still trembling, until Derek gently took them from me. Let me. He unlocked the door with steady hands, then stepped inside first. Stay here. Before I could protest, he was moving through my tiny studio apartment with the practiced efficiency of someone used to assessing threats. He checked the bathroom, looked under the bed, examined the fire escape window to make sure it was locked. Only when he was satisfied did he turn back to me. All clear. I stepped inside, suddenly self-conscious about the cramped space. My entire apartment would probably fit inside Derek's office bathroom. The furniture was all secondhand, a futon that doubled as my bed, a rickety table with 2 mismatched chairs, a kitchenette that barely deserved the name. Books were stacked in piles against every wall, the one luxury I allowed myself. It's not much, I said quietly, wrapping my arms around myself. But it's mine. Derek was quiet, taking in the space with an expression I couldn't read. His gaze lingered on the collection of empty ramen containers in my sink, the single dying plant on the windowsill, the pile of bills on my table that I'd been trying not to think about. How much does this place cost you? He asked finally. Mr. Derek, he corrected. How much? $1,800 a month. I saw no point in lying. It's rent-controlled, which is the only reason I can afford it at all. His jaw tightened. And your mother? I flinched at the mention of her. What about my mother? You send her money every month. I've seen the wire transfers in your banking records. Heat flooded my face. You looked at my banking records? I did a background check when I hired you. Standard procedure. His eyes held mine. What I want to know is why you're living like this. He gestured at the cramped apartment. while sending $1,000 a month to a woman who, from what I can tell, has never done anything to deserve your generosity. She's my mother. The words came out defensive, automatic. She sacrificed everything to raise me. The least I can do is help her financially. Did she? Derek asked quietly. Sacrifice everything? Or did she tell you that so many times you started to believe it? The question hit too close to home. I thought of my mother's constant reminders of how much I'd cost her. Every doctor's visit, every school supply, every meal I'd eaten carefully tallied and thrown back in my face. I gave up my dreams for you. The least you can do is show some gratitude. You don't know her, I said, but my voice wavered. I know enough. He moved closer, his presence filling the small space. I know she calls you at work 3 times a week. I know every call leaves you upset, even though you try to hide it. I know you skip lunch to save money because you're sending half your paycheck to someone who makes you feel worthless. Tears stung my eyes. Stop. Why? Because it's true? His voice softened. Jasmine, you're brilliant at your job. Organized, efficient, capable of anticipating what I need before I ask for it. You're the best secretary I've ever had, and that's saying something considering the parade of incompetence I've employed over the years. Then why do you treat me like I'm about to break? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why do you watch me the way you do? Why did you panic tonight when I was late? Why does it matter to you? Because, he said, and there was something raw in his voice now, something unguarded. I can't stop thinking about you. Every time you bite your lip when you're concentrating. Every time you blush when I stand too close. Every time you drop something and bend over to pick it up. And I have to remind myself that touching you would be the worst kind of line to cross. He took a breath. I'm obsessed with you, Jasmine. Have been since the day you walked into my office for your interview, looking terrified and determined in equal measure. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Couldn't do anything but stare at this man who'd just turned my entire world upside down with a handful of sentences. That's why I care, he continued. That's why I panicked tonight. Because the thought of something happening to you, of losing you before I've even... He stopped, jaw clenching. I need to go, before I do something we'll both regret. He moved toward the door, and panic seized me. Wait. He stopped, his hand on the doorknob. Yes, thank you, I said softly. For coming to check on me, for caring, even when I don't understand why. He looked back at me over his shoulder, and the heat in his gaze nearly knocked me off my feet. Get some rest, Jasmine. Marcus will be here at 7:30 tomorrow morning to drive you to work. Don't argue. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in my tiny apartment with his jacket still draped around my shoulders and the echo of his confession ringing in my ears. I'm obsessed with you. I sank onto my futon, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Men like Derek Drake didn't become obsessed with women like me. My mother had made that abundantly clear my entire life. I was plain, forgettable, nothing special. But the way he'd looked at me tonight, like I was precious, like losing me would destroy him, that hadn't been imaginary. That had been real. My phone buzzed with a text message. From Derek. Lock your door. Set the deadbolt. And Jasmine? Sleep well. Tomorrow, we need to talk. I did as he instructed, turning the deadbolt with trembling fingers. Then I collapsed back onto my futon, still wearing his jacket, breathing in his scent, and trying to process what had just happened. Derek Drake was obsessed with me, and God help me. I was starting to realize I might be obsessed with him too. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face, the raw hunger in his expression when he'd called me beautiful, the way his thumb had traced my cheekbone like I was something precious and fragile. At 7:28 a.m., I was waiting by my building's entrance, wearing my usual uniform of sensible slacks and a modest blouse, my hair scraped back in that severe bun my mother always insisted made me look presentable. I'd tried to return Derek's jacket to its pristine condition, but it still smelled like him, and I'd spent far too long that morning breathing it in before forcing myself to fold it carefully and place it in my bag. The black Escalade pulled up at precisely 7:30. Marcus emerged from the driver's seat, his expression professionally neutral as he opened the rear door for me. "Good morning, Miss Cole." "Good morning, Marcus." I hesitated at the door. "This really isn't necessary. I can take the subway." Mr. Drake was quite clear on this matter, miss. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his weathered face. And I've worked for him long enough to know when arguing is pointless. I climbed into the back seat, my cheeks burning. The interior smelled of leather and wealth, so far removed from the subway's stale air and suspicious stains that it felt like entering another dimension. As Marcus pulled into traffic, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "You didn't call yesterday. I suppose you're too busy with your important job to check on your own mother, the woman who sacrificed her youth raising you." Guilt twisted in my stomach, automatic and familiar. I started to type a response, then stopped as another message appeared. This one from Derek. "Did Marcus pick you up on time?" "Yes," I typed back. "Thank you." "This really isn't necessary, though." His response was immediate. "It is to me. We'll talk when you get in." 23 minutes later, the Escalade pulled up in front of Drake Industries headquarters, a gleaming tower of steel and glass that dominated the Manhattan skyline. Marcus opened my door, and I stepped out onto the sidewalk where other early morning workers rushed past, clutching their coffee and their ambitions. "Have a good day, Miss Cole," Marcus said. "Thank you." I paused. "Marcus, how long have you worked for Mr. Drake?" 12 years, miss." "Have you ever seen him?" I struggled to find the right words. "Has he ever acted this way before? About an employee?" Marcus's expression remained carefully neutral, but I saw understanding in his eyes. "No, miss. Never." The elevator ride to the 47th floor felt both too long and too short. My stomach churned with anticipation and dread in equal measure. What did Derek want to talk about? Last night's confession? The way he'd touched my face like I was something worth treasuring? The executive floor was still mostly empty when I arrived. It was only 7:53, and most employees didn't filter in until 9. I unlocked the outer office that served as my workspace, separated from Derek's inner sanctum by a heavy oak door that was currently closed. I'd barely set down my bag when that door opened, and Derek stood framed in the doorway. He looked like he'd slept about as well as I had. There were shadows under his eyes, and his hair was slightly disheveled, as though he'd been running his hands through it. But he was still devastatingly handsome in a navy suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame. "You're early," he observed. "So are you." I never left. He gestured to his office. "Come in, please." My legs felt unsteady as I crossed the threshold into his domain. I'd been in Derek's office hundreds of times, but it felt different now, charged with the same electricity that had crackled between us in my cramped apartment. The office was exactly what you'd expect from a man of Derek's position. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, sleek modern furniture, and abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than my annual salary. A bar cart in the corner held crystal decanters filled with amber liquid, and a leather sofa faced the windows where he probably conducted his more informal business meetings. "Coffee?" he asked, moving to the espresso machine in the corner. "I can make it. That's my job." "Humor me." He began preparing 2 cups with practiced efficiency. "How do you take it?" 2 sugars, splash of cream." He handed me a cup moments later, our fingers brushing in the exchange. That same electric shock from yesterday shot through me, and from the way his eyes darkened, he felt it too. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the leather couch. I perched on the edge, my spine rigid, both hands wrapped around the warm cup like a shield. Derek sat beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "About last night," he began. "You don't have to explain." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I know you were just worried about an employee. You don't need to." "Jasmine." My name in his voice, rough, commanding, stopped my rambling. "Look at me." I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Everything I said last night was true," he said quietly. "I'm obsessed with you, have been for months. Every day you walk into this office, and I have to stop myself from pulling you into my lap and showing you exactly what you do to me." Heat flooded my face. You can't say things like that." "Why not? Because you're my secretary?" His laugh was bitter. "You think I don't know that? You think I haven't spent 6 months trying to convince myself that this is just some passing attraction that will fade if I ignore it? And has it?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Faded?" "No." He set down his cup and turned to face me fully. "It's gotten worse. Exponentially worse. Do you know what I did last night after leaving your apartment?" I shook my head. "I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching your window to make sure no one tried to break in. Then I went home and reviewed the security footage from your building." My blood ran cold. "What security footage?" "The cameras I had installed 3 weeks ago. In the lobby, the stairwells, the hallway outside your apartment." His expression was unapologetic. "You live in a building with no security, Jasmine. Anyone could walk in off the street." "You've been watching me?" Anger cut through my confusion. "For 3 weeks?" "Protecting you," he corrected. "There's a difference." "No, there isn't." I stood abruptly, coffee sloshing over the rim of my cup. "That's stalking, Derek. That's a violation of my privacy." "I know." He stood too, closing the distance between us. "I know it's wrong. I know I should stop, but I can't. Because every time I think about you walking home alone in the dark, every time I imagine what could happen to you in that building with its broken locks and absent super, He stopped, jaw clenching. "I can't lose you to something I could have prevented. You can't lose what you don't have." The words came out sharper than I intended. "I'm not yours to lose, Derek." "Aren't you?" His hand came up to cup my face, and I hated how I immediately leaned into his touch. "Then why are you wearing the perfume I complimented last month? Why do you bite your lip every time I stand close to you? Why did you sleep in my jacket last night?" My breath caught. "How did you—" "The cameras in your apartment. I installed them when you were at work last week." He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. "I needed to know you were safe." Horror and something else, something dangerously close to arousal, warred in my chest. "That's insane." "Yes." His thumb traced along my lower lip, the touch sending sparks skittering down my spine. "Completely insane. But I've never claimed to be sane where you're concerned, Jasmine. I'm obsessed, possessive, completely unable to function without knowing exactly where you are and whether you're safe. This isn't normal." My voice shook. "This isn't healthy." "No," he agreed. "But it's honest. Can you say the same?" His other hand found my waist, pulling me flush against him. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't lie awake thinking about what it would be like if I touched you, kissed you, made you mine in every possible way." I couldn't. God help me, I couldn't deny it. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, shattering the moment. I pulled away from Derek's embrace, my hands trembling as I checked the screen. 5 missed calls from my mother. A text message. I know you're at work, but I need to talk to you immediately. It's important. Is that her? Derek's voice had gone cold. My mother, yes, I should... Don't. His hand caught my wrist. Whatever she wants, it can wait. You don't understand. She gets upset if I don't answer. Let her be upset. His grip was gentle but immovable. Jasmine, I've been watching you for 6 months. I've seen how these calls affect you. How you come back from lunch with her looking like you've been crying. How you skip meals to send her money. How she calls you 3-4 times a day and you drop everything to answer. She needs me. She's using you. The words were brutal in their honesty. And you let her because she's convinced you that you're not worth anything better. Tears stung my eyes. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? He released my wrist, but his gaze held me captive. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me she doesn't make you feel small and worthless and grateful for whatever scraps of affection she tosses your way. I couldn't, because he was right. Because my mother's love had always come with strings attached, strings that choked and constrained and left me gasping for air. My phone rang again, my mother's name flashing on the screen. Answer it, Derek said suddenly. Put it on speaker. What? No, I can't. Yes, you can. His expression was unreadable. I want to hear her. I want you to hear her too. Really hear what she says to you. With trembling fingers, I answered the call and activated the speaker. Hi, Mom. Finally. My mother's voice filled the office, sharp with irritation. I've been trying to reach you for an hour. Don't you care about your own mother? I'm sorry, You're always sorry, Jasmine. Sorry you're late. Sorry you forgot to call. Sorry you don't have time for the woman who gave up everything to raise you. A dramatic sigh. I suppose your fancy job is more important than family. That's not true. I need money. The words came quick and hard. The rent went up again, and I can't afford it. You'll need to send an extra $500 this month. My stomach dropped. Mom, I don't have an extra $500. I barely... Don't be selfish, Jasmine. After everything I've sacrificed for you, the least you can do is help your mother. Or have you become too good for me now that you're working for some big-shot businessman? I glanced at Derek. His expression was carved from stone, but something dangerous burned in his eyes. I'll figure something out, I heard myself say, the words automatic. You'd better. I didn't raise you to abandon your family the first chance you got. A pause. And Jasmine? You sound tired. Are you sleeping enough? You know how puffy you get when you're tired. It's not attractive. The casual cruelty of it, the way she could pivot from demanding money to criticizing my appearance, should have been familiar by now. But hearing it with Derek listening, seeing his jaw clench with barely controlled rage, made me realize how thoroughly abnormal this was. I have to go, Mom. I'm at work. Fine. Send the money by Friday, and try to do something with your hair. That bun makes you look like a spinster. She hung up before I could respond. The silence in Derek's office was deafening. How long? His voice was dangerously quiet. How long what? How long has she been doing this to you? Making you feel worthless while draining you dry? She's my mother. She's not... She's a parasite. The words were brutal. A narcissist who spent your entire life convincing you that you're not good enough, not pretty enough, not worthy of love or happiness or anything that doesn't directly benefit her. Tears spilled down my cheeks. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He crossed to me, his hands framing my face with devastating gentleness. I understand that you've been so thoroughly conditioned to accept scraps that you can't even recognize when someone is trying to give you everything. Everything? I choked on the word. Everything, he confirmed. My protection, my devotion. Every resource at my disposal used to make sure you never want for anything again. His thumbs wiped away my tears. Starting with your mother. What are you going to do? His smile was cold. I'm going to show her what happens when someone hurts what's mine. You can't just... I started. But Derek's phone buzzed before I could finish the protest. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. We'll continue this discussion tonight, at my place. Your place? My voice climbed an octave. Derek, I don't think... 7 o'clock. Marcus will pick you up at 6:30. He was already moving toward his desk, his phone pressed to his ear as he barked orders in Italian to someone on the other end. The transformation was instantaneous, from the man who just wiped away my tears to the ruthless businessman who controlled half of Manhattan's underground economy. I retreated to my desk in the outer office, my mind reeling. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of phone calls and scheduling, but I couldn't focus. Couldn't stop replaying my mother's voice, the casual cruelty, the demands disguised as maternal concern. And underneath it all, Derek's words echoed relentlessly. She's a parasite who's convinced you that you're not good enough. At lunch, I made the mistake of checking my bank account. After sending my mother the extra $500 she'd demanded, I'd have exactly $73 to last until my next paycheck. $73 for food, subway fare, the prescription I needed to refill. My hands trembled as I closed the banking app. Miss Cole? I looked up to find Marcus standing in my doorway, holding a takeout bag from Maria, the Italian restaurant where a single appetizer cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Mr. Drake thought you might be hungry. He asked me to bring you lunch. The bag contained truffle pasta, grilled octopus, and a dessert that looked like it belonged in an art museum. A note was tucked inside, written in Derek's angular handwriting. Eat. All of it. We both know you skipped breakfast. I should have been annoyed by his presumption. Instead, tears pricked my eyes as I took my first bite of the pasta. It was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. Rich and decadent and so far removed from my usual diet of ramen and bodega sandwiches that it felt like eating in another language. My phone buzzed. My mother again. Did you send the money yet? I'm waiting. I transferred the $500 with shaking fingers, watching my bank balance plummet into the danger zone. Then I set my phone face down on my desk and forced myself to eat every bite of the meal Derek had sent, even though guilt twisted my stomach with each forkful. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Derek emerged from his office twice, once to deliver documents that needed filing, once to tell me in clipped tones that his 7 o'clock meeting had been moved up, so I should be ready to leave by 6. Both times, his gaze lingered on me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. At 5:58, I was gathering my belongings when Derek appeared in my doorway, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder. Ready? I should probably just go home. I'm sure you have more important... Nothing is more important than this conversation. He held out his hand. Come on. The ride to his penthouse was silent, except for the soft jazz playing through the car's speakers. Derek sat beside me in the back seat, close enough that our thighs brushed with every turn, his hand resting possessively on the seat between us, close enough to touch but not quite making contact. Where do you think you first saw me? He asked suddenly. The day of your interview? I glanced at him, confused by the non sequitur. Yes? 6 months ago. Your office. Wrong. A slight smile curved his lips. It was 7 months ago. Cafe Reggio in the village. My breath caught. I remembered that day with crystalline clarity. A rare afternoon off, sitting alone at a corner table with a paperback novel and the cheapest item on the menu. A man had been at the bar, nursing an espresso and working on his laptop. I'd noticed him because he was impossibly handsome, because he'd looked up and caught me staring, because for one electric moment our eyes had met, and that was you. The words came out as barely a whisper. That was me. His gaze held mine. Do you remember what you were reading? Jane Eyre. You were so absorbed in it that you didn't notice when your coffee went cold. Didn't notice when the waiter tried to refill your cup 3 times. You just sat there, completely lost in the story, and He stopped, jaw clenching. I couldn't look away, couldn't stop wondering what you were reading that made you smile like that. What made you bite your lip on page 247? What made you wipe away tears on page 312? You watched me for that long? 3 hours. No shame in his admission. Then you left, and I convinced myself I'd imagined the connection, that you were just another pretty woman in a city full of them. He leaned closer, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. Couldn't get that image out of my head. You in that corner, completely unaware of how beautiful you were, how every man in that cafe was trying to get your attention, while you just read your book and existed in your own world. My heart hammered against my ribs. And when I came in for the interview, I recognized you immediately, told myself it was coincidence, that I'd hire you purely based on your qualifications. His laugh was self-deprecating. But the truth is, I'd already decided before you even opened your mouth. You were going to work for me, be near me every day, and I was going to figure out if the connection I'd felt was real or imagined. And I barely recognized my own voice. It was real, is real, so real that it terrifies me. His hand finally bridged the distance, covering mine. I've built my entire life on control, Jasmine. I control my business, my reputation, my reactions. I don't let anyone close enough to matter. And then you walked into my life twice, first in that cafe, then in my office, and every carefully constructed wall I've built came crashing down. The car stopped, and I realized we'd arrived at his building, a sleek tower in Tribeca that probably had better security than most government facilities. Marcus opened the door, but Derek didn't move immediately. I need you to understand something before we go upstairs, he said quietly. What I'm about to offer you, the arrangement I'm proposing, it's not charity, it's not pity, it's pure selfishness on my part. What arrangement? Come upstairs, please. His penthouse was everything I'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city lights, minimalist furniture in shades of black and gray, artwork that probably cost more than my building. But it was the personal touches that caught my attention. A well-worn copy of The Count of Monte Cristo on the coffee table, a vintage record player in the corner, photographs on the mantel showing a younger Derek with an elderly man who had the same sharp jawline. My grandfather, Derek said, noticing my gaze. He raised me after my parents died, taught me everything about the business, both the legitimate and the less than legitimate parts. I'm sorry. About your parents. Don't be. I barely remember them. He moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of wine. But my grandfather, he understood what it meant to protect what's yours. To do whatever necessary to keep your people safe. He handed me a glass, then gestured to the couch. We sat, and for a moment he just looked at me. Really looked, like he was memorizing every detail. I want you to move in here, he said finally. I nearly dropped my wine. What? Move in, with me. Let me take care of you. Your rent, your expenses, your mother's demands, everything. I can't. That's insane. Is it? He set down his glass and turned to face me fully. You're barely surviving, Jasmine. You send half your paycheck to a woman who treats you like a burden. You skip meals. You live in a building that isn't safe. You're drowning, and I'm offering you a lifeline. In exchange for what? The question came out harsher than I intended. What do you want from me? Everything. He didn't hesitate. Your time, your trust, your presence in my life. I want to wake up knowing you're safe. I want to fall asleep with you in my bed. I want to erase every lie your mother ever told you about your worth and replace them with truth. This isn't normal, Derek. This isn't how relationships work. I'm not offering a normal relationship. His hand found mine again. I'm offering protection, security, a chance to exist without constantly looking over your shoulder, worrying about money, sacrificing yourself for someone who doesn't deserve it. And if I say no? His jaw tightened. Then I'll respect your choice. But I won't stop trying to take care of you. The car service continues. The meals continue. The security cameras, those aren't negotiable. I need to know you're safe, Jasmine. Even if you're not mine, I need that. I'm not a possession to be claimed. No, he agreed. You're not. You're so much more than that. You're the woman I can't stop thinking about. The one who makes me want to be better than I am. The only person who's ever looked at me and seen past the power and the money to something worth caring about. I don't even know you. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. I'd spent 6 months watching him. The way he treated his employees with respect. The donations he made to charities he never publicized. The fierce loyalty he inspired in people like Marcus. I knew him better than I wanted to admit. So get to know me. His thumb traced patterns on my palm. Live here for a month. Let me prove that this isn't some fleeting obsession. Let me show you what it feels like to be cherished instead of used. My mother will never allow it. Your mother, Derek said, his voice going cold, doesn't get a vote. You're 26 years old, Jasmine. You don't need her permission to choose your own life. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. 26 years old, and I was still seeking my mother's approval. Still trying to be good enough, pretty enough, grateful enough. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. He raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. But while you're thinking, stay here tonight. Let me make you dinner. Let me show you what your life could be. Every logical part of my brain screamed that this was too fast, too intense, too everything. But the part of me that had spent 26 years feeling invisible, unwanted, not enough. That part whispered, what if he's telling the truth? What if you could have this? One night, I heard myself say, just dinner, then I'm going home. His smile was triumphant. One night. For now. Derek cooked. I watched from a bar stool at the kitchen island, still processing the surreal reality of watching a man who controlled Manhattan's underworld expertly dice vegetables and sear scallops in a copper pan. He'd rolled up his shirt sleeves, exposing forearms corded with muscle, and there was something devastatingly attractive about the casual domesticity of it. My grandfather believed that a man who couldn't feed himself was only half a man, he said, noticing my stare. He made sure I could handle a kitchen before he taught me how to handle a boardroom. And the other parts of the business? I asked, then immediately regretted it. But Derek just smiled, something dark and knowing. Those came later, after I'd proven I could survive on my own terms. He plated the scallops with practiced precision, adding some kind of sauce that smelled like heaven. Eat. Then we'll talk about the things you really want to know. The meal was exquisite. Perfectly seared scallops with a brown butter sauce, roasted asparagus, and a risotto so creamy it made me want to weep. I was acutely aware of Derek watching me eat, his gaze tracking every bite, every small sound of pleasure that escaped my lips. You're staring, I said finally, setting down my fork. Can't help it. You make the smallest things look erotic. His voice dropped. The way you close your eyes when something tastes good. how you bite your bottom lip before taking another bite. Every unconscious gesture makes me want to... He stopped, jaw clenching. Tell me about your mother. The real story, not the sanitized version. I took a long sip of wine, needing the liquid courage. What do you want to know? Everything. When did she start making you feel worthless? The question was so blunt it stole my breath. I don't... Yes, you do. He leaned back in his chair, his posture deceptively relaxed. You remember the exact moment you realized she saw you as a burden instead of a blessing. Everyone does. He was right. I remembered with painful clarity. I was 12, standing in my mother's bedroom doorway in a new dress she'd bought me for school pictures. I'd been so excited. It was rare that she bought me anything new. But when I'd shown her, spinning so the skirt flared out, she'd looked at me with such cold assessment. It's fine, I suppose, though it does make your hips look wider. We'll need to watch your portions. Then she'd turn back to her mirror, dismissing me. And Jasmine, stop smiling so much. It makes your face look fat. I told Derek this, my voice barely above a whisper. Told him about the years of carefully calibrated criticism. Never quite pretty enough. Never quite thin enough. Never quite grateful enough for the sacrifice of being raised by a single mother who'd given up everything to have me. Did she? Derek asked quietly. Give up everything? She says she did. That she could have been a model. That having me ruined her body and her chances. That I owe her. Bullshit. The profanity was sharp. That's manipulation, Jasmine. Classic narcissistic parent playbook. Make the child feel perpetually indebted so they never question being used. You sound like you have experience with this. His expression shuddered. My mother wasn't much better before she died. My grandfather spent years undoing her damage, teaching me that love shouldn't feel like debt. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. Your mother is never going to change. Never going to suddenly realize your worth and treat you accordingly. The only thing you can control is whether you continue allowing her to bleed you dry. She's my mother, I said automatically, the old defense mechanism kicking in. She's an abuser. Derek's voice was gentle but implacable. And you're her victim, but you don't have to be anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter, another text from my mother. Derek's gaze flicked to it, then back to my face. Answer it, he said. I want to see what excuse she has this time. I unlocked my phone with trembling fingers. The message was exactly what I'd expected. Did you send the money? I can't pay my bills because my daughter is too busy with her fancy life to care about her own mother. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You've always been selfish. Give me the phone, Derek said quietly. What? No. Jasmine, give me the phone. Something in his voice, command mixed with absolute certainty, made me comply. I watched, my heart in my throat, as his thumbs flew over the keyboard. What are you doing? Panic edged my voice. Something you should have done years ago. He showed me the screen. The message read, This is Derek Drake. I'm Jasmine's employer and partner. Any future requests for money should be directed to me, not her. She will no longer be supporting you financially. If you have concerns about this arrangement, my lawyers will be happy to discuss it. Have a pleasant evening. You can't... I started, but he'd already hit send. My phone began ringing immediately, my mother's name flashing on the screen. Don't answer it, Derek said. She'll keep calling. She'll show up at my apartment. Then it's good you'll be staying here. He said it so casually, as if it were already decided. Where she can't reach you without going through building security, and I promise you, my security doesn't let anyone pass the lobby without my explicit approval. I never agreed to stay here. No, he conceded. But you will. Because deep down, you know I'm right. You know that staying in that apartment, continuing to sacrifice yourself for a woman who sees you as an ATM, is killing you slowly. He moved around the table, pulling me to my feet. I'm offering you a way out, Jasmine. Safety, security, a chance to exist without constantly apologizing for taking up space. And what do you get out of this arrangement? My voice was shakier than I wanted. Really? You. His hands framed my face. I get to wake up knowing you're safe. I get to watch you eat meals without worrying about whether you can afford them. I get to see you relax instead of constantly tensing like you're waiting for the next criticism. His thumb traced my lower lip. And eventually, when you're ready, I get to touch you the way I've been fantasizing about for 7 months. Heat flooded my body. This is insane. Probably. His lips curved into that dangerous smile. But I've never been particularly sane where you're concerned. Say yes, Jasmine. Stay here. Let me take care of you. For how long? As long as you'll let me. Forever. If I have my way. My phone was still ringing. My mother, relentless as always. I thought about going back to my cramped apartment, back to skipping meals and counting pennies and apologizing for existing. Then I looked at Derek, at the fierce protectiveness in his eyes, the careful way he touched me like I was something precious. 1 week, I heard myself say. I'll stay for 1 week. Trial basis. If it doesn't work, it will work. He kissed my forehead, lingering there. I'll make sure of it. But we need ground rules. Ground rules? You have your own room, the one next to mine. You're free to come and go as you please, though Marcus will drive you anywhere you need to go. No more subway. His hand slid down to my waist. You answer my calls, always. If you're going to be late, if something happens, you tell me immediately. That seems non-negotiable. His voice hardened. After last night, after not knowing where you were, that's my one absolute requirement. I need to know you're safe, Jasmine. I should have argued, should have insisted on maintaining some independence. But the memory of his panic when I'd been late, the raw fear in his voice, it spoke to something deep inside me that had never felt protected before. Okay, I agreed. I'll answer your calls. Good. His hands tightened on my waist. Second rule, your mother doesn't get your new address, doesn't get my personal number. All communication goes through me. She'll be furious. She can be furious. What she can't be is allowed to continue tearing you down. He pressed closer, until I could feel the heat of his body through our clothes. Third rule, you let me take care of you. That means no more skipping meals. No more wearing yourself out to save money. No more sacrificing yourself. You make it sound like I'm a project to be fixed. No. His voice was fierce. You're not broken, Jasmine. You're magnificent. You've survived years of emotional abuse, and still managed to be kind, thoughtful, completely unaware of how extraordinary you are. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to show you what you deserve. My phone had stopped ringing. 3 voicemails from my mother. 6 more texts. Each progressively more angry, more manipulative, more desperate. How could you do this to me? After everything I've done for you. You're ungrateful, just like your father. This is why he left. That last one hit like a physical blow. My father had left when I was 6, disappeared one morning with no explanation, and my mother had spent the next 20 years making sure I knew it was somehow my fault. If I'd been prettier, quieter, less trouble, maybe he would have stayed. Derek must have seen something change in my face because he took the phone from my hand and read the messages. His expression went dangerously cold. Your father, he said quietly. Tell me about him. There's nothing to tell. He left. My mother says it was because I was too much trouble. Jasmine, Derek's voice cut through my automatic response. Your father didn't leave because of you. Your father left because your mother is toxic, and he was too much of a coward to take you with him. How would you know? Because I had him investigated 3 months ago. The world tilted. You what? Peter Cole. Currently living in Portland under the name Peter Matthews. Remarried. 2 daughters from his second marriage. Works as an accountant. Derek's expression was carefully neutral. I can arrange a meeting if you want, or I can make sure he never bothers you. Your choice. I sank back onto the bar stool, my legs suddenly unable to support me. He's alive. He has other daughters. He's a coward who abandoned his child rather than fight for custody. I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see him. Derek crouched in front of me, his hands on my knees. But if you do want to meet him, want answers, I'll make it happen. Whatever you need, Jasmine. Whatever will help you heal. Why? The question burst out. Why do you care so much? Why go to all this trouble for someone like me? Because you're not someone like you. You're you. The woman who reads 19th century novels in coffee shops. Who bites her lip when she's concentrating. Who apologizes for existing when you should be demanding the world bow at your feet. He stood, pulling me with him. And because the first time I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. Loneliness recognizes loneliness, Jasmine. And I've been lonely my entire life until you. Before I could respond, before I could process what he was saying, he was kissing me. Not gentle, not tentative, but claiming. His mouth hungry against mine, his hands in my hair, his body pressing me back against the counter. I gasped against his lips, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, could only feel. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That's what you do to me, he said roughly, every damn day. And now that I've tasted you, now that I know how you feel against me, I'm never letting you go. Derek. I know. Too fast. Too intense. His forehead pressed against mine. But I'm done pretending this is anything other than what it is. Obsession, possession, love maybe, though I've never felt it before, so I'm not sure. His hands cupped my face. Stay, please. Let me show you what your life should have been all along. And God help me. I nodded, because I was tired of being strong, tired of sacrificing, tired of feeling worthless. For once, just once, I wanted to be cherished. 1 week, I whispered. His smile was victorious. 1 week. For now. The guest bedroom Derek had given me was larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The bed was a California king with sheets that felt like silk against my skin, and the attached bathroom had a rainfall shower and a soaking tub deep enough to swim in. I stood at the window that first morning, watching the sunrise paint the buildings in shades of gold and pink, and tried to process how drastically my life had changed in less than 48 hours. My phone, which I'd finally silenced around 2 a.m. after my mother's 37th call, sat on the nightstand like a live grenade. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Jasmine, are you awake? Derek's voice through the door sent a shiver down my spine. I was acutely aware that I was wearing only the silk pajamas he'd had delivered last night. Pajamas that cost more than my monthly grocery budget and fit me perfectly despite him never asking my size. I'm awake, I called back. May I come in? I tied the robe that matched the pajamas around my waist. Yes. He entered carrying a tray with coffee, fruit, and pastries from what I recognized as Balthazar, the French bakery, where a single croissant cost $12. He was already dressed for work in a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair still slightly damp from his shower. You didn't have to bring me breakfast, I said, accepting the coffee he offered. I wanted to. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching me with those intense dark eyes. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years, actually." It was true. The bed was so comfortable, the apartment so quiet, that I'd slept deeply despite my racing thoughts. "Thank you for all of this." "Don't thank me yet. We need to talk about your mother." My stomach clenched. "What about her?" "She showed up at your apartment building at 6 this morning, tried to get the super to let her in." His expression was carefully neutral. When he refused, she waited in the lobby. "She's still there." Horror washed through me. "I need to go talk to her. She'll cause a scene." "No." The word was absolute. "You're not going anywhere near her. Not until she understands that her access to you is permanently revoked." "Derek, you don't understand. She'll make my life hell. She'll call my work, show up at the office." "She already tried. Called the main Drake Industries line at 7:30, demanding to speak with you. Our receptionist was instructed to transfer her to my personal attorney." He took a sip of his coffee. "Marcus is currently explaining to your mother that any further harassment will result in a restraining order. She's also being informed that the building super at your old apartment has been instructed to have her trespassed if she returns." I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt panic clawing at my throat. "She's going to be so angry. You don't know what she's like when she's angry." "I know exactly what she's like." His voice was cold. "I've been reviewing the security footage from your building, every visit over the past 3 months. I've seen how she speaks to you, how she makes you cry, how you hand over money you can't afford to give while she berates you for not being grateful enough." He set down his cup with deliberate care. "That ends now. You can't just decide that my relationship with my mother is over." "No," he agreed. "But you can. And I'm giving you the space to make that decision without her manipulating you." He moved closer, his hand cupping my face. "Jasmine, abusers don't stop because you ask nicely. They stop when you create boundaries and enforce them. Let me be your enforcer." "What if I'm making a mistake? What if she really does need me?" "Then she can prove it by respecting your boundaries. By not demanding money. By treating you with basic human decency." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "But we both know she won't. Because she doesn't need you. She needs your compliance. There's a difference." My phone buzzed with another incoming call. My mother, predictable as clockwork. "Don't answer it," Derek said. "Let her leave a voicemail. Let her show you who she really is when she doesn't get her way." I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, my phone chimed with the notification. Derek reached for it, raising an eyebrow in question. I nodded, suddenly needing to hear the truth I'd been avoiding. He put it on speaker. "Jasmine Cole, you answer this phone right now. I know you're with that man." I looked him up. "Derek Drake, some kind of criminal masquerading as a businessman. Is this what I raised you for? To be some mobster's whore?" Her voice was shrill with fury. "You're making a fool of yourself. You're not pretty enough to keep a man like that interested. When he's done with you, don't come crying to me. I won't be there to pick up the pieces of your pathetic life." The message ended. Silence filled the room. "She's just upset," I heard myself say, but the word sounded hollow even to me. "She's abusive." Derek's voice was gentle but implacable. "And she's terrified because she's losing control of you. Everything she just said was designed to make you feel worthless enough to come running back." His hand found mine. "But you're not going back. Not ever." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I don't know how to be a person without her voice in my head telling me I'm not enough. "Then we'll learn together." He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself collapse against his chest, breathing in his scent as I cried for the mother I'd never really had. "We'll replace every lie she told you with truth. Starting with this. You're extraordinary, Jasmine. brilliant and kind and so beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. You're just saying that. I'm saying it because it's true. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. Do you know what I see when I look at you? A woman who survived years of emotional abuse and still managed to be gentle, who gives to others even when she has nothing left for herself, who reads Jane Eyre in coffee shops and makes eating scallops look like a religious experience. His voice roughened. I see the woman I'm falling in love with, have been falling for since the moment I watched you cry over a novel and wanted to know what made you feel so deeply. Love. The word caught in my throat. Derek, we barely know each other. I know you take your coffee with 2 sugars. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. I know you apologize for taking up space, even though you should be demanding the world rearrange itself around you. His hands framed my face. I know that when you finally let yourself relax, when you stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, your smile could power the entire city. That's enough for me. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. I need to take this. Work. But Jasmine... He pressed a kiss to my forehead. We're not done talking about this. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, and I was left alone with my thoughts and my coffee and the dawning realization that Derek Drake was offering me something I'd never had. Unconditional acceptance. My phone buzzed again. Not my mother this time, but a text from an unknown number. This is Peter Cole. Derek Drake's people contacted me about arranging a meeting. I understand if you don't want to see me. I wouldn't blame you. But if you do want answers about why I left, I'd like to explain. Your father. I stared at the message, my hands trembling. My father. The man who disappeared when I was 6, whose absence my mother had weaponized for 20 years. He was alive. He wanted to talk. Derek returned, taking in my expression immediately. He contacted you. You gave him my number? I gave him the option. He chose to use it. Derek sat beside me again. Do you want to meet him? I don't know. I showed him the message. What if he's just like her? What if he confirms everything she's said? That I was too much? That I'm the reason? Then I'll destroy him. Derek's voice was casual, but there was steel beneath it. But I don't think that's what will happen. I think he's going to tell you that leaving you was the worst mistake of his life, that he's regretted it every day since, that your mother made it impossible for him to fight for custody without destroying you in the process. How could you possibly know that? Because I had a very thorough conversation with him yesterday. Made it clear that if he contacted you for any reason other than genuine remorse and a desire to make amends, he'd regret it. A slight smile. I can be very persuasive when I need to be. You threatened my father. I protected you from potential further harm. There's a difference. He took the phone from my hands. You don't have to decide now, but if you do want to meet him, I'll be there, every step of the way. The offer should have felt suffocating. Derek orchestrating my life, making decisions, controlling access to people. But instead, it felt like being caught by a safety net I hadn't known existed. For the first time in my life, someone was protecting me instead of using me. I need to get ready for work, I said finally. Take the day off. Derek. Jasmine. His hand covered mine. You've had an emotionally devastating 24 hours. Your mother is harassing you. Your father has suddenly reappeared. You need time to process all of this without the pressure of maintaining a professional facade. If I take the day off, I'll just sit here thinking in circles. Then don't sit here. Come with me. He stood, pulling me to my feet. I have a meeting at one of my restaurants. Come with me. See another part of my world. Why would you want me at a business meeting? Because I want you everywhere, always. His hand slid to my waist, pulling me flush against him. And because it's time you understood exactly what you've gotten yourself into by agreeing to be mine. The restaurant was called Dante's, and it occupied the ground floor of a building in Little Italy. From the outside, it looked like any other upscale Italian restaurant. Red awning, elegant signage, windows revealing white tablecloths and crystal glassware. But I recognized the men stationed outside, the way they nodded deferentially to Derek as we approached, the bulges under their jackets that suggested weapons. "This is one of your legitimate businesses?" I asked quietly, as Derek held the door open. "Mostly legitimate." His hand pressed against the small of my back, guiding me inside. "It's also where I conduct certain meetings that require discretion." The restaurant was closed for lunch service, but the kitchen was clearly operational. I could smell garlic and tomatoes, hear the clatter of pans. A man emerged from the back, older than Derek by a decade, with silver streaking his dark hair and eyes that assessed me with uncomfortable intensity. "Mr. Drake, you're early." His gaze slid to me. "And you brought company." "Marco, this is Jasmine Cole, my partner." The word sent a thrill through me despite the circumstances. "Jasmine, Marco Giordano. He manages Dante's and several other properties." "Pleasure," Marco said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Should I ask Sophia to prepare something for the lady while we conduct business?" "Jasmine stays with me." Derek's voice brooked no argument. "She's involved in all aspects of my operations now." Something flickered across Marco's face. Surprise, maybe, or concern. "As you wish. The others are waiting in the private room." He led us through the restaurant to a door at the back, which opened into a room I suspected civilians never saw. 6 men sat around a table, all stopping their conversations as we entered. Their expressions ranged from curious to hostile as they took in my presence. "Gentlemen," Derek said, his hand still possessively on my back. "This is Jasmine Cole. She'll be joining us for today's discussion. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now." No one moved, but I felt the weight of their stares, the silent questions about who I was and what I was doing in a room that clearly wasn't meant for outsiders. "Good." Derek pulled out a chair for me, then took the seat beside it. "Let's begin." What followed was 2 hours of coded conversation about shipments and distributions, territories and percentages. I understood enough to know this wasn't entirely legal, but Derek had been right when he'd called his operations mostly legitimate. The illegal aspects seemed designed to grease wheels, to navigate regulations that would otherwise strangle the legal businesses. But it was the way the men looked at me that made me understand what I'd really walked into. Not respect exactly, but fear. Fear that Derek's interest in me made me untouchable. Fear that harming me would bring consequences they couldn't imagine. I was under the protection of the most dangerous man in Manhattan. And God help me, I was starting to like it. The call came 3 days later, at 2:47 in the morning. I'd been staying at Derek's penthouse for nearly a week, falling into a rhythm that felt simultaneously foreign and perfectly natural. He left for work before I woke, but there was always coffee waiting and a note with some variation of "Good morning, beautiful." I'd begun working from his home office, handling calls and correspondence remotely, while he'd arranged for a temporary assistant at Drake Industries. My mother's calls had finally stopped after Derek's lawyers delivered the cease and desist letter. I should have known it was too easy. The phone ringing in the middle of the night jolted me awake. Not my phone, Derek's, vibrating insistently on his nightstand in the room next to mine. I heard him answer it, his voice low and urgent, then the sound of footsteps in the hallway. My door opened without warning. Derek stood in the doorway, dressed only in pajama pants, his phone still pressed to his ear. His expression made my blood run cold. "Get dressed," he said. "Now. Jeans and a sweater. Nothing that restricts movement." "What's happening?" "Your mother." His jaw was tight. "She's at the building. With your stepfather. My stomach dropped. I don't have a stepfather. You do as of 3 days ago. Gerald Brennan, recently released from Rikers after serving 18 months for aggravated assault. Derek was already moving toward his own room. She married him in a courthouse ceremony, and they're both downstairs demanding to see you. When security refused to let them up, he got physical. Building security called NYPD, but I'm not waiting for them. I scrambled out of bed, my hands shaking as I pulled on the clothes Derek had specified. Why would she marry someone like that? Because she's desperate. Derek reappeared, now wearing jeans and a black t-shirt that emphasized his muscular frame. She's lost access to you, lost her income source, and she's lashing out. Gerald is her new weapon. A man with a history of violence who she thinks will intimidate me into giving her what she wants. We should just wait for the police. No. He crossed to me, his hands framing my face. I need you to listen very carefully. We're going downstairs, and you're going to end this. Not me. You. Because if I handle it, she'll always believe she can manipulate you through guilt and fear. This needs to come from you. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice was firm. You're stronger than you know, Jasmine. And I'll be right beside you. But you need to be the one to draw the line. Marcus was waiting in the hallway with 2 other men I recognized from the restaurant, both carrying themselves with the casual menace of people trained for violence. Derek's hand found mine as we rode the elevator down, his thumb tracing reassuring patterns on my palm. Remember, he murmured, you don't owe her anything. Not explanation, not money, not access to your life. This ends tonight. The lobby was chaos when we arrived. My mother stood near the reception desk, her face flushed with anger, wearing clothes I recognized as expensive, clearly purchased with money she didn't have. Beside her was a man who made my skin crawl on sight, tall and thick with prison muscles, with cold eyes and a sneer that suggested he enjoyed intimidation. Jasmine! My mother's voice echoed through the marble space. Thank God. Tell these people to let us up. We need to talk. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. You need to leave. Don't be ridiculous. I'm your mother. You can't just ignore me because some man told you to. Her gaze slid to Derek with undisguised contempt. This is his doing, isn't it? He's isolated you from your family, turned you against me. You did that yourself, I said, and felt something shift inside me. Years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. Every time you told me I wasn't pretty enough. Every time you demanded money I couldn't afford to give. Every time you made me feel like a burden instead of a daughter. I sacrificed everything for you. You sacrificed nothing. The words burst out, loud enough to echo through the lobby. You got pregnant because you were careless. You kept me because you thought my father would marry you. When he left, you made me your emotional punching bag for 20 years. That's not sacrifice, Mom. That's abuse. Her face contorted with rage. How dare you speak to me like this? Gerald, tell her... The lady asked you to leave, Derek interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. I suggest you do so before this becomes a criminal matter. Gerald stepped forward, puffing out his chest. And who the fuck are you to... He didn't finish the sentence. Derek moved with shocking speed, and suddenly Gerald was on the ground, his arm twisted behind him at an angle that made me wince. Derek's knee pressed into his back, his voice calm despite the violence of the action. I'm the man who owns this building, and the 4 buildings surrounding it, and the police precinct captain who would respond to any call from this address. He increased the pressure slightly, making Gerald grunt in pain. I'm also the man who has surveillance footage of you striking a security guard 12 minutes ago. That's assault. 3rd strike puts you back in Rikers for a much longer sentence. Are we clear? Derek, I said softly. He looked up at me, and something in my expression made him release Gerald, who scrambled to his feet, his face mottled with fury and humiliation. Get out, I said to my mother. And don't contact me again. No calls, no texts, no showing up at places you think I might be. You're cut off. Permanently. You ungrateful little... She started toward me, but Derek was suddenly between us, his presence a wall she couldn't penetrate. That's enough. His voice was cold enough to freeze. You have 30 seconds to leave this building. After that, I have your new husband arrested and you charged as an accessory. Your choice. For a moment, I thought she might actually try to fight. Then I saw the calculation in her eyes. The same calculation I'd seen my entire life, weighing whether the confrontation was worth the cost. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. When he's done with you, when you're alone again, you'll come crawling back. And I won't be there. Good, I said simply. I don't want you to be. I watched her leave, watched my mother walk out of my life forever with her violent new husband. Her parting shot nothing more than the empty threat of a woman who'd lost all power over me. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just a profound sense of relief. It's done, Derek said quietly, his hand finding mine. It's done, I agreed. Back upstairs, I collapsed onto his couch, adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. Derek sat beside me, pulling me against his chest, his hand stroking my hair with gentle repetition. I'm proud of you, he murmured. Do you know that? How much strength it took to stand up to her. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. Eventually. His lips pressed against my temple. I just gave you permission to access strength you already possessed. I tilted my head back to look at him. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For protecting me even when I didn't think I deserved protection. Jasmine. His hand cupped my face. You deserve everything. And I plan to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. The rest of your life is a long time. Not nearly long enough. His thumb traced my lower lip. I love you. Have loved you since I watched you cry over Jane Eyre and wanted to know what made you feel so deeply. I love you more every day. And I'm going to love you until the day I die. I love you too, I whispered, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between fear and gratitude and obsession, I fell completely in love with you. He kissed me then, and it was different from before. Not claiming or possessive, but reverent. Like I was something precious he'd been entrusted with. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire. Stay with me, not as a guest, not on trial. Stay as my partner, my equal. His voice roughened. Let me worship you the way you deserve. Yes, I breathed. Yes to all of it. He stood, pulling me to my feet and leading me to his bedroom, the room I'd never entered, the space that was entirely his. The bed was massive, the sheets dark gray, and the windows offered a view of the city that made me feel like we were floating above the world. Derek's hands found the hem of my sweater, pausing. Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me you're not ready. I'm ready. I pulled the sweater over my head myself. I've been ready since you first touched my face and called me beautiful. What followed was everything I'd never had. Gentle hands that explored rather than demanded, kisses that worshipped rather than consumed, words whispered against my skin that made me feel like a goddess instead of an obligation. Derek took his time, mapping every inch of me, erasing years of my mother's criticism with his touch. You're perfect, he breathed against my throat. Every inch of you. And I'm going to spend hours proving it. He did. By the time dawn broke over the city, I'd been thoroughly loved, thoroughly claimed, thoroughly convinced of my own worth. I lay in Derek's arms, my body pleasantly sore, my heart fuller than I'd ever imagined possible. "I have something for you," he said quietly, reaching for the nightstand drawer. He pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait, do this properly. But after tonight, he opened it to reveal a ring, not ostentatious, but perfect, a simple platinum band with a single diamond. "Marry me, Jasmine. Not because I'm obsessed, though I am. Not because I want to protect you, though I do. But because I love you, and I want to spend every day proving that you're worthy of everything good this life can offer." I should have said it was too fast. Should have insisted we needed more time. But looking into his eyes, feeling the certainty of what we'd built in such a short time, I knew there was only one answer. "Yes," I said. "Yes to marriage. Yes to forever. Yes to this beautiful, insane love we've somehow created." He slid the ring onto my finger, then kissed me again. And I thought about the woman I'd been just weeks ago. Invisible, frightened, convinced of her own worthlessness. She was gone. In her place was someone new, a woman who knew her value, who could stand up to abusers, who had found love in the most unexpected place.